Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Cy Goldberg.
This is the news.
So, Monday Night Raw. A lot of stuff happened on Monday Night Raw. The Shield are back for the 17th time in what feels like 3 months. But the biggest talking points come from the women's division. Yes, sorry, I left you hanging there. Basically, the short version of what happened is that Ronda Rousey turned heel. And Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair are wrestling at Fastlane this weekend. If Becky Lynch wins, she will be added to the women's title match, making it a triple threat at WrestleMania. Now, this whole thing panned out in a very long, convoluted, drawn-out way. It was good. It
was a roller coaster, wasn't it?
It really was. It was an adrenaline-fueled thrill ride. Not easy for me to say. It started when Stephanie McMahon, in the middle of the show, announced that she was reinstating Becky Lynch and stripping Ronda Rousey of the Raw Women's title. That did not go well. We then got a contract signing, a hold harmless agreement thing in the main event slot. Becky and Charlotte are in the ring. Out comes Ronda, hacked off, blah, blah, blah. She's spitting venom at Steph. Steph puts the belt back on her, then adjusts the stipulation. It was originally supposed to be Becky versus Charlotte for the vacant belt. She adjusts the stipulation to the one we've just described, and then Ronda goes nuts. She hits Charlotte, she destroys Becky with an armbar and strikes. She gets booed from every corner of the arena, and Charlotte, being the great heel that she is, refuses to get involved. So, if you can make sense of that, you're probably in the same boat as us because it was very confusing. However, that's where we are. Ronda's a heel, we're getting Becky versus Charlotte, and we're probably getting the triple threat.
Do you know what? I stand corrected. I sat here recently and said, I think they should probably just keep her as a bit of a tweener, you know, not really have her say that much, get her off social media, don't really respond to anything. But this worked perfectly. Yeah. It is going to be a little bit weird when eventually, well, fingers crossed, unless they really balls this up, when we eventually get to WrestleMania and the triple threat is the man taking on two heel characters. Yeah. But, I mean, you could argue if we're talking callbacks to previous WrestleManias, WrestleMania 30, you did eventually get that once Daniel Bryan beat Triple H in the opener.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got Triple H. You got Randy Orton and Batista versus Daniel Bryan, and it was an against the odds victory. So
yeah,
I like it.
Classic moment in what is regarded by many as a classic WrestleMania match. I thought the whole thing was really well executed. It was convoluted. It did take a number of big twists and turns, but at least it kept the show exciting. You know, when Stephanie shows up about an hour through and says, "Yeah, Ronda Rousey's been stripped of the title," I was like, "What?" But that's not even a story anymore because the whole thing flipped around.
Do you think it was to do with retaining viewers, perhaps?
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, they've had real struggles with capturing the audience in the third hour, particularly, unfortunately, when it comes to Ronda Rousey stuff. You know, she has not proved the needle mover in terms of ratings, at least over the past few months. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out when those numbers are released, probably later today. But yeah, the whole thing went really well, and Ronda as a heel is going to be pretty great.
Really good. Right, let's move on to our next story for today, and it centres around Alicia Fox and Arn Anderson. Now, you may have heard that we reported recently that Arn Anderson was released by WWE, and reports are claiming, this is from Sean Ross Sapp, that one of the reasons behind it is because he allowed Alicia Fox to compete whilst intoxicated at a house show. Now that is arguably just the tip of the iceberg here, because apparently Alicia Fox has refused rehab. She went missing for a while surrounding all this. It's really intriguing. And it's only going to get worse, I sense, for WWE from here.
Yeah, this is a really weird story because apparently Alicia just kind of vanished when they offered to send her to rehab after showing up intoxicated. She hasn't wrestled since February 10th. That was on a house show. Apparently, it sounds like she hasn't even been heard from. Nobody knows if she actually went to rehab in the first place. No one really has a clue what's happened here. It's all very confusing. But you know, the unfortunate thing, as Mr. Sapp pointed out in his write-up, is that Alicia does have prior with regards to this. She got into a spat with Travis Brown, who is of course Ronda Rousey's husband, at WrestleMania last year backstage. She also was reportedly 2 hours late for a show in 2017 when she was supposed to be getting a nice little push up the card. So she's probably on thin ice. This is a weird situation. I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, I hope she's all right, obviously. If she's suffering from something, she obviously needs to take care of that. But with this and Lars Sullivan, there's just a lot of strange absences going around.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's a hard thing to deal with for WWE, no doubt. But let's hope that this all gets resolved soon and Alicia gets the help that she needs.
Absolutely, it'd be good to see her back on our screens. So, Sad news next, unfortunately. WWE legend King Kong Bundy has passed away at 61 years old. Now, he is, of course, most famous for headlining WrestleMania 2 against Hulk Hogan for the WWE Championship. He was defeated, but back in the 80s, he worked for WWE from 85 to 88. In that time, he was really seen as one of the few guys who could legitimately potentially beat Hogan. He was a major monster heel. And while his run with the company was relatively short, he returned in 1994 for a short run. He really was one of his era's premier monster heels. He was a really big deal at the time. And we don't have any specific details on his death, but it was reported last night and corroborated by PW Insider. Really sad situation. He was a very important figure, particularly for Hogan at that time. While his second run didn't really meet expectations, you've got to remember him for that first period. With the company,
he was a real legend from back then. And talk about a monster heel to build up to face Hogan. I think it was WrestleMania 1, wasn't he? He just he squashed someone.
Squashed SD Jones in like 10 seconds or something,
Made himself look like an absolute beast. And then obviously they built to WrestleMania 2. And it was a classic showdown, as we all remember. And a great loss.
Yeah, a real sad one. Like, he's got a really storied history. Like, he feuded with Andre before Hogan. He then teamed with Big John Studd. He reprised the Hogan rivalry before he left. He even did a random one-off appearance for ECW of all places in 1993 before returning to WWE in 94 and joining the $1 Million Corporation. He unfortunately had a pretty subpar rivalry with The Undertaker soon after that, but his first run was really important. It was a key stage for WWE in their growth and their development and breaking out on a major mainstream level. And opponents like him were a big reason why Hulk Hogan became Hulk Hogan. He needed these monsters to slay, and Bundy in his day was one of the best. So rest in peace, and our thoughts go out to his friends and family at what is surely a difficult time.
An update on Jason Jordan to tell you about now. Of course, he's been missing from in-ring action from quite some time. There's been reports of him getting involved in more of a backstage role, though, and good news when it comes to that side of things. Apparently, it's been reported by WrestleVotes that he's been sitting in on creative meetings and really getting involved, and they've got high hopes for him.
Yeah, it sounds like Jason Jordan is a really valued person backstage, which is really nice to hear, because obviously he hasn't wrestled since January 2018. He underwent successful neck surgery shortly after that, but with reports that he was like losing feeling in his fingers and stuff, that doesn't sound good. Now, all reports concerning him and wrestling have unfortunately been quite negative. He may never wrestle again. His odds look very slim. However, coupled with reports that he'd been shadowing producers backstage, this is really good stuff. This is really nice to hear. WWE have clearly, he's only 30 years old, remember, as well. WWE have clearly found a nice role for him. And the fact that he's sitting on these meetings with the likes of Bruce Pritchard and Road Dogg, who's held in very high esteem, guys like Abyss and Sanjay Dutt who've come in, Jeff Jarrett, the fact that his voice is so valued speaks volumes, really. Yeah, for people who don't really know about this sort of thing, they would not just put him into one of these meetings just to, look good in the media, would they? They obviously value his creative input, and it's a tough sell. I get it. Look, Jason Jordan grew up wanting to be and was a really good wrestler, and had a lot of potential. Obviously, the storylines he was given towards the end of his run weren't that great, but we could all see, especially when he's in American Alpha, just how good he was. And it's tough transitioning from being a wrestler to doing whatever, but if you can still stay involved in the industry and also provide something with that, it's only beneficial for everyone. It's great to see him that he's able to keep a toe in the business, and here's hoping it works out well, because by all accounts he's a lovely guy and a true professional. So fingers crossed for Jason Jordan. Best of luck to you, mate. Right, let's move on to today's Twitter questions. As always, you can tweet them at us at WhatCulture WWE. First question today comes from Uesugi Kenshin. Thank you for another question. Who says, do you think Ronda's heel turn is preparation for a 4 versus 4 horsewoman match? Ooh, interesting one. I don't think so. I don't think that this specific flashpoint is preparation for that, purely because, as has been reported, I do expect her to take some time off, if not immediately after WrestleMania, a few months after, so she can do the Becky singles match. She wants to start her family, she wants to take some time off. On top of that, I don't think, with all due respect, that Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir are quite ready yet, watching their NXT performances and stuff. I think we will get that horsewoman match, but I think it's likely a year or so away. Yeah, I'm really hopeful that if they can, and if what you suggested there happens,
we get it at like Survivor Series 2020.
Perfect.
I know that's very much fantasy future booking.
They need it. The rookies really need it. Shayna and Ronda are great. The other two have only been wrestling for a very short period of time. They just need more work.
But it would make sense to have, if you are going to have a heel and a face team, for the heels to be the MMA side.
100%.
Right, next question comes from Well Duncer on Twitter, who says, do you think sending Nia Jax down to NXT to squash Shayna Baszler
What?
would be beneficial for both so that Shayna could come to the main roster and Nia could gain more experience?
No! Why would you squash Shayna Baszler? She's like the dominant NXT women's... Why would you do that?
There's elements of this. Like, you change one word in that sentence, and I would argue that you could. Do you think sending Nia Jax down to face Shayna Baszler would be beneficial for both? That's surely a good
Be
idea.
squashed by Shayna Baszler.
Yeah,
I mean,
be squashed
yes,
by
get
Shayna
her
Baszler.
squashed by Shayna Baszler. I mean, if you want to have them face off, fair enough. You can present it as a different type of foe, a different type of opponent to those that Shayna has faced so far in her NXT Women's title reign. But I think, like, with all due respect, I think that Shayna Baszler getting squashed by Nia Jax is catastrophic booking.
Yes.
You're going to send her up to the main roster on like a one-sided loss to like one of the most maligned people in the company. That would ruin her hopes before it even starts, I think.
However, having those two switch places, I do agree with. I think Shayna Baszler up on the main roster could be absolutely
needs to go
phenomenal.
up.
She needs to go up, arguably, straight after WrestleMania.
And Nia needs to go down.
Yeah,
to NXT.
I think you have the tag match that we've got set for Fastlane with Nia and Tamina taking on the Boss and Hug connection, of course. And then, I mean, we always have the call-ups post-WrestleMania. Imagine them saying, look, Shayna Baszler has gone to the main roster on NXT. The women's title, maybe even you keep the women's title as vacant. Maybe she retains it and drops it a bit like Asuka did.
Yeah, I could see that.
You do that and you say, we're going to have a tournament to see who the next women's champion is.
Incoming
Surprise entrant, Nia Jax. Look, we know Nia, we've said this many times, Nia Jax may benefit from going back down to NXT and get more training, and I think so. A switcheroo with Shayna and Nia
I mean,
would be
that would
good.
work. Book her in
But
the
don't-
tournament, have her
don't-
go at the final, get beat by Io Shirai.
Please don't squash Shayna.
Yeah,
please. And the final question of today comes from Angela Dawn, who says, why do you think WWE keeps certain superstars under contract when they don't even use them or have any interest in putting them on TV? She gives examples, Dana Brooke, The Ascension, and Zack Ryder.
They want all the toys and they don't want to give any of their rivals any potential assets. Like, that's why I think, at least. Like, these wrestlers are nothing in WWE. Like, Dana Brooke, she doesn't wrestle on TV.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah.
she had an okay match with Lacey Evans at the weekend.
Yeah, 2.5 stars,
Two
baby.
okay matches.
Two!
Oh, yeah. Various Twitter.
Slow down, Lacey!
The Ascension are crap. They just are. Zack Ryder is a good wrestler, but he hasn't really done anything in a long time. They aren't necessarily assets for WWE, but they could go elsewhere, be built up, and show their worth as performers. WWE just don't want to give anyone away to AEW, New Japan, and any other organization. I think they're just greedy.
And also, you have to remember that some people's role on the roster is to get other guys over.
Yes.
When you're building
Yes.
someone up, when you're building a tag, when you're building heavy machinery up. It happened this week on Monday Night Raw. They beat The Ascension, they beat Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. They look better as a result of that. You can't, we've moaned about 50-50 booking for so long. You can't have all the guys on an even keel because then no one stands out. So you need people. As much as, you know, they're not setting the world on fire, if you're establishing a new female superstar, having her come in and destroy Dana Brooke makes a lot of sense. But
yeah, you need tiers. There's that, Jim Cornette has a great analogy where he says that if you were building a dream roster and that roster comprised of the 30 best wrestlers in the world, all of a sudden the 30th best wrestler in the world is the worst on your roster. You need tiers, you need jobbers. Dana Brooke's good at that, The Ascension are good at that, they suck, but they're good at that. Zack is good at that as well, maybe he should be a little bit higher, but these people could do other things elsewhere.
right, let's move on to today's.
Except Connor, he's terrible.
Let's move on to today's and finally, and it's a bit of a shocking news story as well. I've got to report this. Phil, I hope you're ready, because Rich Swann is back in WWE.
What?
Can you handle this? Can you handle this? Well, sort of. You see, we've done many times on this news, we've showcased terrible wrestling action figures, thumb up the bum,
Thumb in the bum.
all that sort of thing.
Better put that out for context.
But you may have seen this photo doing the rounds on Twitter recently. Someone even sent it to Nia Jax. It's a Rich Swann box for a WWE action figure, which contains Nia Jax.
And there's a joke in there that I'm not going to make.
Now look, I get it. It's also apparently cost you $9.84 for a wrong action figure in a box. Like, I get it. Sometimes they make mistakes. They put AJ Styles in a Roman Reigns box. Arguable, you could make that mistake because they're two megastars in WWE, right? This is literally Nia Jax being put in a box with a man's face on it who doesn't even work for the company
anymore. Who hasn't worked there for like a year. That's why.
Thankfully,
why are they like this?
Nia Jax, yes, was all good with this. She laughed about it on Twitter.
Oh, for a bit of partner.
Or only at Walmart, says Carlos Lara, who shared it with her.
Good.
Any more terrible action figures? I've got so many. I need to make a gallery.
You need
for
to
the
make a
website.
list, brother.
Any more terrible action figures, feel free to send them to
And don't
us.
forget to put your thumb in the bum.
And if you want to tweet them at us, I'm at Adam Wilborn on Twitter. He is at
Andy H. Murray.
And our lovely editor Phil is at Phil My Chambers. Let us know your thoughts on that and all of today's news stories in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And make sure you check out What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes or Spotify for daily wrestling podcasts. My thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.
I was talking about the action figure, by the way.
No, he wasn't.